The story you're about to hear takes place in Charlotte, North Carolina. At my sister's wedding, my father raised his glass, smiled at 150 guests, and destroyed me with a single speech. He called me a burden he never wanted, the daughter he wished he'd never had, and everyone heard it. Some laughed, some looked away. No one stopped him. But what my father didn't know was that I recorded every word. And by the time I was done, the man who humiliated me in public would lose far more than his reputation. He would lose everything. My name is Destiny Palmer. I'm 30 years old. 1 month ago, I stood at the back of the ballroom in uptown Charlotte, half hidden behind a column, doing what I'd always done at family events, staying quiet, staying invisible, pretending it didn't cut anymore. When my father picked up the microphone for his toast, I still had that stupid, childish flicker of hope that maybe this time he would remember he had 2 daughters. Out of pure habit, I opened the voice memo app on my phone and hit record. That small reflex is the only reason you're hearing this story today. He tapped his glass and began. "To my daughter," he said. For one heartbeat, my chest lifted. Then he laughed, short, sharp, deliberate. "I should say my only daughter. This incredible woman right here is everything I'm proud of." That shadow standing in the back, he waved a hand vaguely toward me as heads turned. "That was just a mistake I made 30 years ago. Honestly, we should have cut our losses back then." The room reacted the way crowds do when cruelty comes wrapped in a smile. A ripple of nervous laughter spread. A few people glanced at me, then quickly away. No one interrupted. No one said a word. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I locked eyes with him across the sea of faces, then slowly scanned every single person who had just watched my public erasure and decided it was entertainment. Then I turned and walked out. I crossed the ballroom, pushed through the lobby, stepped into the cold rain outside the revolving doors. Water soaked through my dress instantly. My phone was still recording in my hand. Standing on the sidewalk, rain running down my face, I made myself a promise right then. This would be the last time they laughed at me without consequences. If you've ever been the forgotten child in your own family, hit that subscribe button and stay with me, because what I did next changed everything. The morning after the wedding, I woke up on my couch in my small apartment in Charlotte, still wearing the ruined dress. Hearing my father's voice through my earbuds without the clinking glasses, the music and the nervous laughter of the crowd was like being slapped a second time. I listened all the way through, right up to the moment my heels clicked across the marble floor as I walked out. Then I saved the file, renamed it Evidence Wedding Toast, and backed it up to the encrypted cloud storage I use for work. I'm a forensic accountant for government contractors. Protecting sensitive financial data is second nature to me. Yesterday it had been audit trails and contract discrepancies. Today it was my father's voice calling me a burden he never wanted. For 30 years I had told myself stories to survive. He's just old-fashioned. That's his way of joking. You're being too sensitive. But listening to the recording again, there was no way to spin it anymore. He meant every word. And if he was willing to say that into a microphone in front of witnesses, I had to wonder what else he was capable of when no one was listening. The first call I made that night in the rain was to the only adult from my childhood who had ever quietly disapproved of how I was treated, my father's older brother. To me, he was Uncle Thomas Pierce. To the rest of the world, he was Thomas Pierce, former co-founder of Palmer Public Works, before he was forced out under circumstances no one ever explained. When he answered, his voice was rough with sleep and concern. "Destiny. Are you all right? I caught part of the live stream before it cut, but did he really say that?" My own voice came out steady, colder than I expected. "Did you hear the toast?" A long pause. Then a heavy breath. "Your cousin Austin sent me the clip. I've watched it 4 times. Your father has completely lost it." "No," I said. "He's just finally saying what he's always believed. I have the recording too. I'm done pretending this is humor. I want to know what he's hiding. Why he's treated me like a problem he regrets instead of a daughter." Another pause longer. Destiny. He said this isn't just about family hurt. If you start digging around Richard Palmer, you won't just find mean words. You'll find things you can't ignore. Then help me find them, I said. I'm not a child anymore. You were pushed out of Palmer Public Works, and I know it wasn't clean. You know where the skeletons are. He gave a bitter chuckle. You really want this? Because once you pull that thread, there's no going back to holiday dinners and pretending everything's fine. I stared at the rain-streaked window. We both know I was never really invited to those dinners anyway. That was enough. He sighed, a long, exhausted sound carrying years of buried anger. All right, noon tomorrow. The diner off I-85 in Concord. Don't text the location to anyone. And Destiny. Leave the phone your father pays for at home. After I hung up, I made the second call. This one was to my college roommate, Jasmine Holt, now one of the best financial crime attorneys in the Carolinas. We hadn't talked in months, but the moment she heard my voice, she knew. What's wrong? I sent her the audio file right there on the sidewalk, watching the upload progress through the rain. When it finished, I said, listen to it, then tell me what legal options I have. The third call was to my work phone to myself. I left a detailed voicemail, date, time, location, exact words from the toast, and the existence of the recording. Then I transcribed it and stored everything in a secure folder. At that point, it wasn't emotion anymore. It was documentation. The email I sent that night went to a generic address, integrity@ncprocurement.gov. It was the anonymous reporting line for state procurement. I didn't accuse anyone specifically. Not yet. I just asked what a citizen should do if they suspected a major infrastructure contractor was manipulating records and retaliating against family members who might know too much. I hit send at 2:43 a.m. That same afternoon, I drove to a quiet diner just outside Charlotte to meet Uncle Thomas Pierce. He was already in the booth when I arrived, eyes red, hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping him steady. For the first time in my life, he looked genuinely afraid of my father. You really want to know why he treats you like that? He asked without preamble. Yes, he met my eyes. Because you're the one thing he can't control. You chose forensic accounting instead of joining Palmer Public Works. You refused to sign his standard family agreement after college. And ever since then, he's been shifting assets and contracts into your sister's name to punish you. He slid a worn folder of old emails and board minutes across the table. He forced me out because I told him what he was doing was illegal, he said. Kickbacks on public bids, inflated change orders, false compliance reports. All of it. If someone with your skills and my old records started looking, the whole house of cards could collapse. I stared at the documents. Everything inside me went still. So let's look, I said. If he insists I'm a burden, then I'll be the kind of burden that brings his perfect world down. Later that day, Austin Pierce, Uncle Thomas's son, and my cousin texted me a single file and internal email chain from 2 years earlier. Austin still worked in the accounts payable department at Palmer Public Works. He'd stayed neutral for years, but the wedding toast had been the breaking point for him too. The email showed my father pressuring a city engineer to approve a rushed safety certification on a major intersection project right after a near-miss accident had been reported. Austin wrote one line, "I can get more if you need it. Just say the word." I forwarded it to Jasmine. She called within minutes. Your uncle's documents are solid starting points. Austin's email adds weight, shows ongoing pressure. We build this legally public records whistleblower channels, nothing hacked. But destiny. Once we move forward, subpoenas will come. They'll trace it back to you eventually. I thought about the ballroom, the laughter, the way my mother had looked at her plate instead of at me. Then let them trace it, I said. Over the next 2 weeks, my kitchen table in Charlotte became covered in spreadsheets, printed public records, and highlighted timelines. I downloaded years of city procurement files tied to Palmer Public Works traffic signals, road resurfacing stormwater systems. I cross-referenced contract dates with project delays, cost overruns, and one incident that turned my stomach, a construction worker injury, at a site where safety monitoring equipment had malfunctioned according to the report. At the same time, Uncle Thomas used whistleblower protections to request his old personnel file and internal memos. Some pages came back heavily redacted, but Jasmine knew exactly how to interpret the black bars. I filed my own public records requests for inspection reports on Palmer projects. The pattern emerged quickly. Late Friday change orders that doubled costs without justification. Payments to consulting firms with no physical address or website. Internal notes from city inspectors saying they felt rushed to sign off on substandard work. And every time I connected another piece, I heard his voice again, that shadow in the back, a burden he never wanted. Then one night I opened a shareholder ledger Austin had quietly copied for me. 5 years earlier, my sister Caitlin had been gifted a 25% stake in Palmer Public Works for her marketing contributions. My name was nowhere. Instead, there was a document labeled Waiver of Future Claims to Family Business Interests, signed by me, dated the week I graduated college. I remembered it instantly. My father had slid it across the table at a loud graduation dinner, said it was routine estate paperwork. I'd signed at 22, exhausted and eager to leave the house. I crumpled the edge of the printout. When I sent it to Jasmine, she called immediately. He coerced you into signing away your rights. If we prove a pattern of retaliation and manipulation, that waiver becomes key evidence. Retaliation like publicly shaming me so I'd never challenge him. Exactly. So we mapped the timeline. Graduation, the waiver, Uncle Thomas's exit, the largest city contract in company history, the safety shortcuts, the wedding toast. The line from family cruelty to corporate fraud was no longer blurred. It was straight. 3 weeks after I sent that anonymous email, my phone lit up with a message from Kevin Lang at the state procurement office. He asked if I would speak confidentially about potential irregularities with Palmer Public Works. I stared at the email for a long time. This was no longer just personal. This was becoming an official whistleblower matter. I forwarded it to Jasmine. She called right away. If you go through with this, she said, it's not a family argument anymore. It becomes investigations, depositions, possible civil penalties. They'll know it was you. I remembered my father lifting his glass, the room laughing, while my mother stared at her napkin and Caitlin smiled to keep things light. Then I said, he cast me as the villain in his story years ago. If I'm going to be the villain, I'll be the one who tells the truth. So I agreed to the meeting. In the days leading up to it, Austin sent one more batch of files, internal memos, showing my father had threatened a subcontractor who questioned billing discrepancies. Use this carefully, Austin texted. I'm still on payroll. If they find out it's me, I'm done. I assured him we'd protect sources. Jasmine and I finalized the timeline cross-referencing every document with public bid records. The evidence was overwhelming, repeated double billing on materials, falsified progress reports to trigger early payments, and pressure on inspectors to overlook code violations. Kevin Lang's office would have no trouble connecting the dots. I printed everything, organized it into folders labeled by project, and prepared for the conversation ahead. Back at my parents' house in the suburbs of Charlotte, the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. I still rented the basement apartment there, but suddenly every door felt locked, every conversation hushed. My father started keeping his home office door closed and keyed even when he was just grabbing coffee. My mother flinched every time her phone buzzed, glancing at me before answering. Caitlin stopped coming downstairs altogether. If she needed something from the kitchen, she sent a text asking me to leave it outside her door. They didn't know the details yet, but they knew something had changed. Conversations died the moment I entered a room. My father watched me over breakfast with narrowed eyes like he was trying to read code on my face. One evening, my mother finally spoke quiet, almost pleading. "Destiny, is everything okay? You've been so distant." I looked at her, the woman who had spent 30 years looking away whenever my father cut me down. "I'm fine, Mom," I said. "Just working a lot?" She nodded, but her hands trembled slightly as she cleared the table. I didn't tell her what was coming. There was no point. She had chosen silence long ago. The morning of the meeting arrived, and I walked into the state office building in downtown Charlotte with a folder of evidence under my arm. Kevin Lang met me in a small conference room, no windows, just a table and 2 chairs. He was calm, professional, mid-40s. "Thank you for coming in person," he said. "We take anonymous tips seriously, but face-to-face helps." I laid out the documents one by one. The old board minutes from Uncle Thomas, the email chains from Austin, the public records showing cost overruns and safety issues, the coerced waiver, the timeline tying everything to my father's decisions. Kevin scanned page after page, nodding slowly. "This is substantial," he said. "If even half of this holds up under audit, we're looking at civil penalties in the millions, debarment from future bids, possibly referral to the Attorney General's office." I mentioned Austin's role without naming him directly, protected source. Kevin understood. "We'll handle subpoenas carefully. Whistleblower protections apply here." As I left the building, my phone buzzed. A text from Austin. "They just called an emergency board meeting. Everyone's on edge." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. 6 months later, the fallout had settled over Charlotte like dust after a demolition. Palmer Public Works was hit with a civil penalty of $2.8 million for contract fraud and false claims. The company lost every active city contract, traffic systems, roadwork, everything. My father filed for personal bankruptcy protection after the fines wiped out his liquid assets. Caitlin's 25% stake was voided in the settlement. She walked away with nothing but legal bills. My mother filed for divorce 2 months after the first audit notice arrived. She moved to a small condo in Raleigh and stopped returning my calls. I packed up the basement apartment the week the penalty was announced. I haven't spoken to any of them since. No holiday texts, no birthday cards, no pretense. I moved to a 1-bedroom in Noda, changed my phone number, and kept working now for a firm that specializes in government integrity audits. Sometimes I still hear his voice in my head, that burden he never wanted. But it doesn't sting anymore. It's just noise. Blood doesn't make a family, respect does. When the people who should protect you choose to break you instead, silence only gives them more power. Standing up isn't revenge. It's reclaiming the life they tried to erase. And once you do, you realize you never needed their approval to begin with. You just needed the truth and the courage to let it out.